So welcome to this edition of the EV Revolution Show. My name is Kenneth Pecor.
I'm Trevor Page. Thanks for joining us on this second episode, although we're not really numbering them anymore.
So on our last show, we had started off the show with some EV FUD type information, and we had a couple of stories that we were looking at the time. We broke it up. We wanted to follow up with the second story, and that's when you look at comparing gas stations to EV charging stations. A lot of the argument of people that are not a support of EVs saying, well, there's not enough infrastructure out there to support it. And, there's gas stations all over the place. So there was a recent U.S. study that was done that looks at some of the numbers. In the United States, under 1/3% of all autos on the road, these are consumer automobiles, are electric vehicles. So 0.29%. That equates, now the total number of autos on the road in the U.S. is about 270 million, plus or minus. And they estimate about 150,000 gas stations that provide about 8 pumps per station when you average it out. So when you do the math, that gives you a ratio of about 225 autos per available pump. Now, in the U.S., there are approximately 794,000 electric vehicles, with about 48,472 or so public charging stations. Again, this number does not include residential or private stations. So when you do that math, it gives you the ratio of 16 to 1. So we go from 225 to 1 to 16 to 1 in EVs, which is a pretty good ratio. So it's about 14 times more than gas pumps. Now, when we factor in residential home charging, because we know that most people charge at home. Now that number, and we guess about 75% of EV owners have home-based charging. So when you add those numbers, that 75% equals just around 600,000 additional charging stations, and it takes that ratio even lower to about 1.23 to 1. So it's a really nice argument that you can, or facts that you can come back with to people that are countering about infrastructure. And a lot of the studies that are out there take broad approaches for EV infrastructure and comparing them with gas stations. And you have to remember that's a little misleading because the majority of EVs are still heavily, in the U.S., are still heavily centric by state. So states that have early adoptions, like California being the number one, with over 5% of all auto sales being EVs. So it really is a different refueling paradigm when you talk about electric vehicle charging stations versus refueling your traditional gas stations. I mean, when we go to gas stations, we're in and out in a couple of minutes, right? You fill up and you go. Charging stations, though, can take more time for DC fast charging as well. It can take up to 45 minutes to an hour. So it's a little bit different experience. And a lot of those fast charging stations are co-located in areas where there's businesses, shopping, hotels, restaurants, things like that. So that EVers tend to use the stop as a part of the whole trip experience, or I'm going to go have lunch, or I'm going to do something, going to do some shopping, and so forth. And you've experienced this on some of your journeys.
Yeah. It's either destination charging or opportunity charging. It's not always, you don't always need a fast charge.
That's right.
The fast charge is like when you have a case of I got to get there itis. Mm-hmm. But most of the time, if you're just shopping, you're going to be there for a couple hours. Charge, why not?
So some good information to throw back at people when you're having that conversation, or if you're on the fence thinking about electric vehicle. Here's another good reason why you can look at one.
I will tell you this. I'll just add this real quick. When I get this argument, what I do is I pull up the PlugShare app on my phone and I just zoom in on the local area, and that ends the argument every single time.
Good point. Yeah, it's a great app.
Yeah.
So some stories that we continue to monitor and follow up. Now, we talked about the Nissan Leaf Rapid Gate concern on our last show. We reached out to Nissan Canada, and this is the response that we got from them, and I quote, "The 2018 Nissan Leaf has charging safeguards to protect the battery during repeated fast charging sessions in a short period of time. So while the safeguards may increase charging times after multiple fast charging sessions, they are important to maintaining battery life over an extended time period." So this is definitely a feature, a built-in it's built into the BMS system for the Leaf, that they want to protect the battery. So they do purposely throttle back.
To keep it from overheating.
Keep it from overheating,
right.
Exactly, because heat is the culprit in battery degradation and damage.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a purposefully built feature to that. So, your mileage will vary, but if you're looking at an EV to do, 5, 6, 7 EV fast chargers all the time, then you may want to look at something else, right? And the good thing is there's lots of choice.
Is there potential to wait for the 60 kilowatt battery? Because the news I keep hearing for the next version of the Leaf with the larger battery pack, which is supposed to happen sometime early next year, as far as I know, will have a liquid cooled battery pack?
My understanding in sources from Nissan is that, yeah, the larger battery pack, assuming around 60 kilowatt hour, will have an active thermal management system,
then it may
some
mitigate
sort
this
of
issue
cooling. And
largely.
it may even be a different, I doubt it'll be a different battery supplier because it's from the company that they sold off, but I certainly think that they will activate active thermal management solutions there. And possibly change the chemistry again in the batteries. They may still use pouch batteries. And my understanding is that the Leaf will start production in later 2019. That Leaf Gen 2.5, whatever you want to call it.
Oh, really?
And be available for 2020, but it could happen sooner. So
Okay.
we'll wait
as
and
we
see.
get more information, we'll bring it to you.
So there's some information on that. Another story, of course, that we reported on a couple of months ago was the Germany Tesla scandal, whereas the German government was fighting with Tesla that they didn't have a vehicle that qualified for their incentive program of having a vehicle priced under the 60,000 euro price point, so they took it off the incentive list. Tesla fought that over the last couple of months, and they ended up winning this fight because the German government just, as of March 6th, put Tesla back on the eligibility list for the 4,000 euro incentive that they can qualify for.
Well, that's good news for Germany. Yeah.
So good news for Germany, good news if you're thinking to buy a Tesla in Germany. Quickly on the March scorecard, it's a scorecard that Inside EVs puts out, and we tend to monitor it. Out of the top 10 electrified vehicles in this is a USA number, a scorecard. 6 of them were battery only vehicles, so we're starting to see that shift of plug-in hybrid to all electric, all battery. Of course, Model 3 being number one, which surpassed the 3,800 delivery mark in March. They are trending very well. That puts the Tesla 3 for the first calendar quarter of this year at almost 8,200 deliveries. Again, the Tesla numbers are estimated by Inside EVs because it's hard to get exact numbers until the calls. But their record has been really good. They're almost spot on. So well, they're really close. Model S and X were the other ones up there. The Bolt had over 1,775. The Leaf at 1,500, so it's starting to surge. And the bottom of that top 10 from electrification vehicle perspective was the i3. And that includes the Rex versions as well. They don't split that up. So still doing some sales. So overall, for the first quarter of 2018, the calendar quarter, it seems like in the U.S., Tesla did about 18,000 vehicles. So when you factor in what they're doing globally, they should easily break the 100,000 global sales, if not maybe 125,000 at this point. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Easily. Well, that's what they've been trending for.
Maybe 150 even. So,
well, on the S and X, of course, when you add 3 into the mix, easily, yeah. The S and X have been largely scaled at about 100,000. About 100,000, but the Model 3 is going to put them over that for sure.
That's going to be the ringer in that equation. And some notable mentions: the e-Golf had 164 in the U.S. The Ioniq EV only had about 60. And the Kia Soul had 150. So I'm not sure why they're not.
It's such a nice car.
It is.
Why don't they bring more in?
They just aren't building that many, Trev.
I guess.
What can you do?
Too bad.
I know, exactly. Sticking with Tesla Model 3, so of course, good news that the deliveries are up. We are hearing that by this time or the end of April-ish, that production should get closer to 2,500 units per week. However, they just announced a 5-day plant shutdown. Maybe you can talk about that.
The media has been making too much noise about the plant shutdown. This is kind of normal, for any manufacturer to retool or rejig. We did get some information from the CBS article that Tesla had made some mistakes along the way with automation, so this could be part of that. I'm not too worried about it because it's only 3 to 5 days. So so apparently they're taking some of the automation out or rejiggering with some people and stuff. Well, the upcoming financial call hopefully will shed some more light on what they've made some changes, because they did drop some pretty big bombshells in this thing about automation. So hopefully some of the analysts on this call will grill Elon on what kind of changes that they've made. So looking forward to that. They're still looking to produce 5,000 to 6,000 cars sometime by the third quarter, which is still encouraging. So the production's still ramping up. So that's always good for those of you waiting for VIN numbers. It could be almost imminent and stuff. Speaking of which, of course, with Model 3 being available in Canada now, we did get some information recently that they are going to start calling people now to start issuing some potential delivery dates as soon as June. So if you haven't checked your account, check your VIN number and see if there's anything in there. Again, we don't have any reports of anyone receiving VIN numbers in Canada yet. It's still coming, but I've been told that it's almost imminent. The other part too, we should mention, for those of you who don't know, who are waiting, in Ontario, the Model 3 has finally made the EHVIP incentive list now, so it does qualify for the $14,000 Ontario incentive. Again, how long that lasts is up for grabs because, again, we have an upcoming election and they've made it pretty clear that they're against anything green or whatever. So if you're counting on the rebate to afford the Model 3 and you're just waiting for that all-wheel drive and it might happen in July, I would caution you not to wait anymore. It's actually safe to pull the trigger now, but if you're counting on the rebate, don't leave the money on the table. Just do it. It's a great car, all-wheel drive or not. I think you'll be very pleased with it. So I just wanted to put that out there. Oh, the other thing too we got to mention is there's still some confusion that we're getting from people asking about the $75,000 cap. That's across all cars. So if the car is over $75,000, it doesn't qualify. However, that cap is only on the base price of the car. Options don't count. So things like autopilot and your paint and your wheels, they don't count. And our estimation of the car coming in right now at about $57,000, you're under the $75,000 cap. If you do wait, and let's say they add the all-wheel drive, and let's call it $6,000, you're still under the cap. So it fully qualifies.
Still pretty safe, yeah.
So it's important to remember, options on the Model 3, autopilot, and all those other things, they don't count against the cap. So you're fully safe to get the rebate on the Model 3 at this point. It's only the S and the X because they start well above $75,000. They're just not on the list anymore. Well above $75,000.
And then we heard something about Model Y production that could start in November of next year. Is that an Elon number, or where does that come from?
Well, there was some information that was gathered out there that Tesla had sent out some tenders, I guess, to contractors for parts, and they said that they were planning for production to start in sometime in November of 2019. But Tesla's start record for production is not always on par and stuff, so I would take that with a huge a huge grain of salt. But what it does is it indicates that we should see the Model Y reveal happen sometime this summer, maybe in the fall. So as soon as we know more, we'll let you know.
Yeah. So on to some other manufacturers. Now, we talked about BMW in the last show, that they were actually seem to be taking a step back in a wait and see from an electrification standpoint. But just in that short couple of weeks, they've done a 180, and now they are restating the importance of electrification for their business in the future. They've announced spending plans for R&D in excess of 7 billion euros, some huge money they're throwing at this. In 2017, the BMW Group sold about just over 103,000 plug-in electric cars. That was up 65%, so there's definitely an upward trend for them in sales. This year, their target is 140,000, and by the end of 2019, 500,000. So within a really short period of time, they're seeing this hockey stick as well. Many new models are coming to the market for them, as we talked about in previous shows, including the iX3, the new i4, and the electrified Mini. And by 2025, they'll have a total of 25 cars that'll have a plug of some sort. So
I think they're feeling some pressure from Volkswagen and Mercedes, right? They had a bit of a head start on them, and then they kind of like dropped the ball a little bit. Now they're back with full force. So good for BMW. I like their products. So yeah,
I know you do. They are good products. Let's move on to the Chevy Bolt. A couple of things about the Chevy Bolt to talk about. First of all, there seems to be either a recall or not an official recall, but there are some issues with some potential faulty cells in the 2017 model year Bolts only that have been found to lead to an issue where there's no propulsion, where the car just simply loses drive power. You drive along and it just stops.
One cell drops out and the whole thing stops.
The whole thing stops. So there was a recall issued. I don't know if it's been classified as a safety recall officially, but there is a recall to all 2017 Bolt owners. And the automaker says that they're going to perform a software update in-house that'll provide additional warnings if they think the battery could drop to a dangerous condition where it could just die. So you'll get some sort of notification, battery's about to die, pull over or whatever. So you can take some corrective action before it loses propulsion. And apparently the 2018 Bolts, so if you have one of those, are not affected in this.
Okay.
So I'm not 100% sure, and it doesn't seem to be all of them, but they are issuing this update. Now, in conjunction with that, they are now starting to provide over-the-air updates, which is good to see manufacturers jump on that bandwagon. These updates are typically going to help improve phone connectivity, your display resolutions, rear camera operations, and assorted bug fixes. And then you'll be able to improve software updates on your radio as well with these. Now, we're not sure if this particular recall will be done over the air, or you have to take it into a service station. It's not 100% clear, so there may be a mix on that.
It's good to see Chevy Bolt owners going to get Christmas in July too, right?
Christmas can happen anytime.
Yeah, it's like Christmas.
Just look outside. Moving on, staying in the GM umbrella, though, with Buick, they've launched a concept that they call Inspire, and it's a pretty neat-looking car.
That's an awesome-looking car.
Very nice. I know you got a few pictures behind us. Now, remember, it is a concept, and of course, it's an SUV. We talked about that. The market there.
That's where the money is.
That's where they're showing the money. It's estimated at 370-mile EPA range, 0 to 60 in 4 seconds, 410 kilowatts of power. However, don't get your hopes up, because right now this is potentially a China-only offering. It seems that they want to go after that huge market that we really don't talk about China, because it would be a whole show in itself and a series on what's going on in China. They are just going through the roof on electrification. But this is something that Buick seems pretty intense on going after that market space. And it's an exploration of Buick's bold design ideas and innovative technologies for future mobility. So
concept.
We'll see. Stay tuned for that.
It looks good,
It does look
but
good.
GM has a track record with their concepts of dumbing them down. So just it looks great, but keep in mind it's going to be backed off a little bit. But encouraging.
Now, you mentioned Mercedes earlier, that BMW is feeling the heat. Well, they continue to pour it on from an electrification standpoint by announcing the EQS sedan that they want to come out with. It's going to basically be a S-Class level all-electric car. It's going to be their high end. To me, that means high price, but anyway, it's all good.
Oh, yeah.
It'll be top-of-the-line luxury based on the MEA platform. Estimated production in 2020. There's that magical year. No other specs released other than some pictures, I think, from Geneva, I'm not sure, or New York, one of the recent auto shows. But yeah, it'll be out there, and it'll be
looking forward to seeing that.
For you executives that want to drive in some luxurious cars, you will have something in a few years. Now, we've talked a lot about VW and some in their cars that they're coming out with. We just wanted to mention that there was a recent article that came out that VW is reestablishing their commitment to electrification by building more battery packs per year. The Braunschweig factory in Germany, which the MEB platform is built on, for that MEB platform, builds battery packs today for plug-in electric cars. So they're going to increase the capacity there to at least 500,000 packs per year, if not more. And in conjunction with that, VW has also ordered up to $20 billion, and that's billion with a B. It's a big number of batteries to be able to facilitate the production of those packs. They haven't said who their battery supplier is, and we're not sure if they're sole sourcing or multi-sourcing. From this, I would guess sole source, but it could be either LG Chem, Samsung SDI, or the guys in Hungary at SK Innovation. So we'll have to wait and see. But you think it might be Samsung? That's kind of where you're leaning?
Well, only because they've used them in the e-Golf. So, but anything's up for grabs. But they are committed. Seems to be they're doing the pouch cell thing. So.
So we'll see what happens there. Here's a little bit of a fluff piece that we like to throw up for when we see new manufacturers, and we've put a few of these oddball ones up on the show before, but this is a Czech Republic manufacturer, and they've launched an EV called the Luka EV. And when you look at some of these pictures you're seeing behind us, it really kind of a cross between a Carmen Ghia, the AM Aston Martin DB4, and kind of an older Mercedes-Benz 190 SL from different angles. It's got 4 12.5 kilowatt motors pumping out almost 17 horsepower each. These are in-wheel motors. So they combine to create a total of about 50 kilowatt, or just under 70 horsepower. Doesn't sound like a lot, but this car is fairly light. There's a lot of carbon fiber in it, if I remember reading some of the specs. So it provides a 0 to 60 in under 10-second little jaunt. And it does have some aluminum chassis components as well, with a just under 22 kilowatt hour battery pack, with an estimated range of about 300 kilometers or 186 miles. They didn't say if this is EPA, NEDC, or WPTL, or whatever the other one is.
NEDC numbers.
It does. It does. But hey, no pricing or delivery. But I could see this as a little Sunday, in the summer.
It's retro. I like it.
Going to a car show or whatever and throwing, or Bond, James Bond, but whatever. Right?
Yeah, I like it.
Trevor Page. Has a nice ring to it.
Oh my gosh.
With a martini, but no alcohol. But stay tuned if we see that this goes out of country.
What's the company called? MW Motors?
MW Motors, yes, that's the
Republic.
company.
So
yeah.
check it out.
Check it out in the Czech, exactly. If you're there, let us know. Now, you had heard a story in Belgium about a new supercharger that opened up from a Tesla perspective. You want to talk about that? It's in Belgium's. Their 11th supercharger at the Novotel in
Yeah,
Antwerp.
we're pretty good
North.
friends with
Yeah.
the guys in Belgium. Martin sent me a bunch of pictures that he took. I'll put them up behind us, and they made a big shindig. And of course, the star of the show, of course, was Yo-Yo showed up with his Model 3.
Yo-Yo showed up. Yeah.
Yeah,
I must
unbeknownst
have
to a lot
just
of
missed
people.
them because I was just in that area
Yeah,
like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, so he showed up with his Model 3. It was a big hit.
Yeah.
Big shout out to Michael Russo too, who
Yeah.
just took delivery of his CPO Model S, and he was supercharging.
I was the first
there.
guy to see it. We had dinner that night. He got it.
Yeah,
So
a good shout out
Hey,
to
Mike.
Michael and stuff. So he had a chance to sit in the Model 3, so
Yeah.
he was all very happy about that. So yeah, it's pretty good. We'd like to be able to report more on supercharger openings in future shows, so we'll make a point of doing that. It's growing like crazy, so I don't know how fast we'll be able to keep up on it.
Yeah.
But it's very encouraging that the supercharger networks continue to grow.
Now, we talked about some of the March numbers, and there was a report that came out about the top 6 automakers in the USA that are closest to hitting that 200,000 sales for reaching the phase out of the U.S. tax credit. Good thing is it's still alive because there was some controversy last year.
Yeah.
So out of those top 6 manufacturers, this is as of the end of March, if I believe my numbers are correct. BMW had just under 64,000 units sold in the U.S., Toyota at 75,000-ish, Ford at 106,000, Nissan number 3 at 117,000, and of course they are starting to sell a lot more. GM with a combined 176,000, and that's including Cadillac and Chevrolet divisions. And of course the number 1 EV seller in the U.S. is Tesla with 177,000 and change. And then that's excluding the Roadster, but the Roadster wasn't much anyway. What, 2,500 or something?
Yeah.
It was very limited. So let's say closer to 180,000. Now, we were talking about this off show, but we do expect that Tesla, and there's a lot of reports whether they're purposely holding back, U.S. deliveries or not, who knows. But we just by the way things are trending with the shutdown, that we expect that they'll hit the 200,000 mark in July. That's kind of a safe bet. I doubt it'll be before that.
It's important to remember, too, and we want to reiterate that the federal tax credit does not immediately get cut off the moment they sell the 200,000th car. It triggers a phase-out period. Mm-hmm. So for the first, 6 months?
6 months, yeah.
So the first 6 months that they hit the calendar quarter at 200,000, you still qualify for the full $7,500 credit. So if you're counting on the credit to be able to afford the Model 3, you're still safe at least until they hit that, and then for another 6 months they're still okay. After the 6 months, then they have another 6 months, or was it one more calendar quarter? I forget what it is, but anyways, that rebate now gets cut by 50%, so then it's $3,750, and then after that it gets cut yet again, and then after that it's just gone. So
correct. So if they hit it in July, you'll get 100% till December, and then it'll go to 50% in January of next year until end of June, and then 25% from June. Only for a single quarter after that. So if it makes that sense, it'll end in September of 2019 at that pace. So there's still lots of room to collect something based on that. So if we hear anything more, and GM, if you're looking at the Bolts, if you can find one, they seem to be starting to close. They may even hit that mark this calendar year too. Depends.
They could if they keep production up. I mean,
gotta get 'em out
worldwide
there.
production is only about 25,000 cars a year.
Yeah.
So how much go in the U.S. as opposed to abroad?
Yeah. How many Cadillacs are they? I don't even know how many.
Not many, because they only really
plug-ins.
did the ELR, and
Right.
it's a dead product anyways,
Yeah.
because it's just too bloody expensive.
Exactly. And one last thing, we just kind of wanted to talk about there's many reasons why Trevor and I do what we do. I mean, we have full-time jobs. We're pretty busy, so this is more of a passion and a hobby for us. That's for sure. But, we are very concerned about climate change and global warming and all that kind of stuff, lowering greenhouse gas emissions. And there's a study that just came out by the Center for Polar Observation and Modeling. I believe it's a UK study from the University of Leeds. And basically, they did a complete underwater mapping of the Arctic, Greenland, and Antarctic ice shelves. And they've come to the conclusion that all these ice shelves are being melted away at the base. So you're not seeing them from an aerial perspective.
Like the iceberg thing.
They did an underwater type of mapping scenario, but because most of the ice is submerged, you don't see that. They are melting away at an alarming rate, and because the water underneath those ice shelves are warmer than it used to be, and so obviously this is going to contribute to global sea level rise. Scientists say that if all the ice at both poles melts, again, that would be a long time for that to happen, but that ocean levels would rise by 216 feet, and that would be a pretty game changer from a planet perspective. So If people that are saying that the increase in greenhouse gas emissions is not contributing to climate change, well, I think that we beg to differ on that, and there's definitely lots of facts to support that they are contributing.
You know what? Whether you believe in climate change or not doesn't matter. The fact that we humans, with industrialization and burning of everything, we're not helping things.
We're definitely not helping.
We are not helping. And if you look, there's several graphs out there that show, the increase in the worldwide temperature is almost following exactly the rise in industrialization since the 1800s.
Yeah,
so I think there's some kind of correlation there.
Absolutely.
But the bottom line is that we're polluting the planet. It's not good for anybody, including all the animals we have to share the planet with. So
I do a lot of traveling, and everywhere I go overseas, everybody's weather is different. It's completely different. There's no patterns anymore. It's just completely different. Where it should be warm, it's cold. Where it should be cold, it's warm. It's all over the place. So things are happening. Yeah. Let's get in the mailbag.
Oh, we love mailbag.
We do love mailbag. Now, we just have one mail that came in recently. This is from Peter. It's not Peter. I think it's Peter. And he's in South Africa. Well, thank you very much for tuning in all the way halfway around the world. We appreciate that. And he's asking, he heard that Tesla's going to set up a battery factory there. And is there any truth in it? Because BMW and Nissan are selling EVs there. They have already about 60 charging points set up in the Johannesburg area. That's at least a start. He loves the show, and he just wanted to know if we had any kind of thoughts to when Tesla might set up something there.
Well, that's a really good question. Thanks for sending that in.
Yeah.
Well, I follow Tesla very closely, and they have not made any formal announcements as far as next battery. So, and South Africa is not something I've heard. I mean, there's potentials for all over the world. But no, there's nothing that I'm aware of that's happening. So
Teslas are sold and delivered in South Africa, though, right? I believe you can get them. I don't know.
I'm not 100% sure. I'm going to say no, but I could be wrong on that. And if I am wrong, of course, we'll let us know. People will let us know in the comments. Yes, I'm sorry.
We love the comments.
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, of course, Elon has ties to South Africa because that's where he was born, so he would stand the reason that they would set up shop there. And there's no reason not to think that they won't set up shop there eventually. It's just right now they have to go where the money is. And that's
that market in Africa is not as big as some of the other potential markets like China and others that they really want to get into.
Yeah, exactly. So, by the way, we want to make a mention too. If you'd like to send in something for Mailbag, feel free to send it in as an audio recording. You can record something on your phone or your computer, whatever, and you can just email it to us. Try to keep it under a minute so that we're not, listening to it for 3 minutes at a time. And and we'll certainly air it on the show and answer it that way. So it's not strictly email anymore. You can certainly do it that way. So how can people reach us?
Well, and they can also video, by the way, if you're not afraid to get your face on camera like we are.
Sure, we'll do that.
We're not, then we'll take the video as well. But again, keep it under a minute. So send us that email to evrevolutionshow@gmail.com. That's our new email for this show, evrevolutionshow@gmail.com. You can, of course, follow us on Twitter at the new Twitter handle at evrevshow. Of course, you still have your Twitter going?
Yeah, I do. And don't forget, you can check out the Model 3 Owners Club website for all things Model 3. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. And don't forget to click the little bell icon so you get instant notification as soon as a video goes out, including this show. And lastly, we want to mention our Patreon campaign, of course. All the Patreon supporters make this show happen. It pays for equipment and time, travel, and so on and so forth. So we really appreciate everybody on there. So you can check that out at patreon.com/Model 3 Owners Club. Haven't changed the name yet. We're just kind of leaving it there for now because it really goes into this show for everybody.
Now this show will still continue to be delivered both on the Model 3 Owners Club channel and the newer EV Revolution Show YouTube channel that we set up. If you are subscribed to the Model 3 Owners Club channel, we would love it if you could subscribe to the EV Revolution Show channel as well, so we can start getting those numbers up. As we talked about, earlier in some of the shows, it just really helps to kind of give us credibility when we're out there. Our plans are to do a lot more coverage from a vehicle perspective. We are trying to get into all the other manufacturers out there that have plans for electrification, so we can start doing reviews of cars and getting into press sessions and this kind of stuff when things come out.
Now that the weather's warming up, of course, we're doing a lot more community outreaches and stuff. So if you're out there in the Southern Ontario region, you'll see our faces.
You'll see us and come and say hi, as people do, which is great. So again, that's there's another show in the can. So
sounds good.
Did a good job.
Yeah, sounds good. So thanks for watching, folks, and we'll see you on the next one.
Yeah, take care. Bye bye.
See ya.